Saba's Stories. The Travels of Sinbad, Part 4. Sinbad and the Guardian of Diamonds. In the previous parts of Sinbad's travels, we saw that he started his business from the city of Basra with a business group. They boarded a ship and arrived at an unknown island. That island was floating on a fish, and every now and then it went under the water. All the merchants fled from there. But Sinbad was trapped there, and after a long time he was rescued and reached the land of the Philippines. He worked in the palace of the king of the Philippines. Some time passed, and finally his ship and his friends reached the coast of the Philippines. Sinbad found them in disbelief and returned to his own land with them. With the wealth and money he had earned, he bought a big house and helped the needy. After a while, the thought of travel and business came to his mind again, and now the story continues. After resting for a while, Sinbad decided to travel again. Because he had learned the ways and customs of business and did not like to sit idle in a corner. Rather, he liked to try hard. He bought many goods and boarded a ship with his merchant friends and went to trade. They went from one land to another and did business, until they reached an island with green trees and beautiful flowers. Colorful birds were singing on the branches of the trees. The flowers of that island had a pleasant smell. Sinbad and his friends lay down and slept under the shade of the trees and then started to roam around the island. Sinbad saw a clear spring from a distance. He left his friends and went to the spring to drink some of its water. He suddenly realized that his fellow passengers were afraid of something and quickly ran to the ship and boarded the ship. He also ran after them, but it did not reach them. The ship left the island. He remembered the events of his previous trip again. He survived that time. But can he be saved this time too? He set out on the island to find a way to leave the island. He went to the top of a tree and looked around from there. But there was no news of anyone. He only saw a big white ball in the distance, which was very strange. He came down from the tree and moved towards that white ball. When he reached that big white ball, he realized that it is very hard and solid. He looked around to find a door, but there was no door on it. At that moment, he felt that it was getting dark. He raised his head and looked at the sky. He was surprised to see a very big bird coming towards him. The wings of that bird were so big that it blocked the sunlight. Sinbad now understood why his friends had quickly boarded the ship out of fear and left. They must have seen this bird and fled. Sinbad realized that the big white ball was the bird's egg. He went near a boulder and hid himself under it. The bird came close and slept on the egg. A thought came to Sinbad's mind. When the bird was sleeping, he went to the bird's feet and tied himself to the bird's feet with his shawl. Sinbad hoped that tomorrow morning, when the bird wakes up and flies, he will leave this island with him. He woke up early in the morning with the movements of the bird. The bird spread its wings and went to the sky. Sinbad also went to the sky with him on his feet. The bird flew out of that island. He flew over the sea and reached another island. After some time, the bird landed on the ground. Sinbad immediately removed the shawl from his waist and hid behind a boulder. The bird wandered around a bit, then caught a big snake with its claws. He lifted it up and went into the air. The fruit of that bird was poisonous, and big snakes that lived in that desert. When the bird went away, Sinbad came out from behind the boulder and saw that he was in the middle of the desert. He said to himself that he wished he could stay on the same island because it was full of clear water springs and fruit trees. But here was a dry desert without water and grass. He saw a light from a distance. He went closer. He saw that it was full of shining stones. He picked one. Yes, they were diamonds. He realized that because of the huge and poisonous snakes that are there, no one dares to come there. That deep valley had no way to anywhere and was surrounded by high mountains on all sides. Mountains that could not be climbed, and a snake was lurking behind every boulder. No matter what Sinbad tried, he could not climb them. The snakes hid in the corners of the desert during the day to be safe from the big bird and came out at night. Sinbad set out and knew that they would come out of their hiding place at night. It was getting dark little by little. He saw a cave nearby. He went into the cave and placed a big stone in front of the cave door so that the snakes could not enter the cave. When he woke up in the morning, he came out of the cave. He was very hungry and thirsty. From a distance, he saw a big piece of meat lying on the ground. He looked around carefully. He saw a person standing on top of the mountain and a vulture was flying. He realized that he had thrown the piece of meat down the valley so that the pieces of diamonds would stick to it, and he was waiting for the bird to take the meat with "Take yourself to the top of the mountain." Sinbad decided to make a plan to escape from there. He filled his pockets with diamonds and slowly approached the meat. Then he wrapped himself around the meat with his shawl. He picked it up and flew into the air. The vulture landed on the mountain. When he was about to eat the meat, someone came out from behind the rocks and shouted. The vulture got scared and flew away. The man came close and took the piece of meat. He noticed that the diamond was not attached to it. He was upset. He thought that Sinbad had taken the diamonds. But Sinbad told him that it is not a good thing to take other people's property. Instead, he gave her some of the diamonds in the bag and asked her to help him escape from there. That night, Sinbad slept with the man and his friends on top of the mountain and told them the story of his life. They could not believe that Sinbad came out of the desert of snakes safely. Because they had been coming here for years to get diamonds, but if someone fell there, he would not come out alive. Sinbad told them that if a person thinks well in any situation, he can find the best way. Sinbad hoped that he could go out of that desert with them. The next morning, Sinbad set out with some men. They passed through plains and mountains and reached a green land. The land was full of colorful flowers. That area was full of tall and green trees. The branches of the trees were so tall and wide that under a large number of people could rest in its shade. Because they had traveled a long way, they were quite tired. They decided to rest a little. They sat under the tree. One of them said, "I am very hungry." The others confirmed his words. But Sinbad saw that they had eaten all the food they had on the way. He asked them with surprise, "Are the leaves of this tree edible? I do not see any fruit." They laughed and said, "No. Eating the leaves of this tree causes illness, but this tree has sap that is very tasty." Then he removed one of the large and broad leaves of the tree. The stem of the leaf was very thick. When the branch was separated, a white liquid flowed from there. The man took a container under the liquid. The container was filled. Sinbad brought some other containers and filled them too. It was a white and warm liquid like milk. When the dishes were filled, they sat together and ate that fragrant and delicious drink. The taste of that drink was very sweet and pleasant. By drinking it, they got a new life and their fatigue went away. After eating, they burned the dry leaves of the tree and made a fire. They filled a container with river water and put it on the fire to heat it up. Then they washed their clothes with that warm water. Then they rested in the cool shade of that tree. Wow, it was a blessed tree. After resting, they gathered their things and set off. They passed a long way and slowly reached the city. Sinbad bought valuable and expensive things with the diamonds he had. Then he went to Basra and from there to Baghdad. He gave a lot to the needy. He spent part of the journey throwing parties and inviting his friends. He was telling the story of his amazing journey to his friends and family.